Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm your host, Steve Carroll. I can't promise you an uplifting podcast this week. I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that, but I can promise you a great guest to discuss things with. It is a great pleasure to welcome back Stuart James to the podcast. Evening, Stu, and thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on again.
Thanks very much, Steve, for having me on. It's always a pleasure to come on. I'm sorry I'm not coming on in more upbeat circumstances. I feel I need to make it clear, actually, that this was agreed some time ago. And I didn't get in touch with you this morning and say, hey, Steve, you got to get me on. It wasn't like that at all. And obviously, we've been speaking for a little bit and trying to organise something. And yeah, sod's law, I come on the back of a pretty bleak time, really.
Yeah, we're not very upbeat, are we, at the moment? It's fair to say. Two games to discuss, a 0-0 at Southampton that we somehow came away with a draw from, even though it was very undeserved, and then a very disappointing night last night against QPR. I mean, we'll start with Southampton, Stu. We were both at St Mary's on Saturday for the early kickoff. I mean, it's going to be probably a challenging game against the side that have come down from the Prem, although they haven't had a brilliant start. And before a ball's kicked, if we were offered the draw, we'd probably all go, well, that's quite a reasonable but return. But the performance really did leave a lot to be desired, didn't it? It felt like the result was the only positive, and it was very undeserved. It was more through bad finishing and a few good saves from Lawrence Figueroa as opposed to some sort of masterclass, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just a really disappointing game, Steve, wasn't it? We were so poor, and I was hugely frustrated, as you know, because you had the misfortune of standing next to me. But right from early on in the game, really, and sometimes you think you might not play well for sort of 20 minutes or so, and then you'll improve and get going. We never did that. It was so poor. We looked pretty shapeless, which is a theme. And yeah, that point you make then about it wasn't some sort of defensive masterclass. I did see some comments on social media which I found extraordinary, like, well, fair play, the defensive setup was good to come away with a point. It wasn't good. We were so lucky that Southampton's finishing was absolutely atrocious. I mean, obviously there was that really shocking miss at the opposite end to us in the second half. Um, but before that, they were carving us open at will. It was really uncomfortable to watch. Poor Josh Key is clearly going through a really tough time to the point that you think, he has to come out of the team and not just for half a game against QPR. He looks like he needs a break. And watching him get torn apart and be targeted really by Southampton, it was really uncomfortable that. And yeah, we offered nothing going forward, did we? I mean, I think our most dangerous player was Casey when he came off the bench with about 6 minutes to go and came up for a couple of set pieces, which says it all, really. Yeah, it was a really worrying performance, and it's interesting because you're right. On the face of it, if people had said before the game, "Would you take a point?" You probably would. But I also feel there's this really strange narrative that does the rounds, which for me is so out of keeping with the mentality that drove Swansea up through the leagues and gave them the success they had in their early years in the Premier League, whereby people seem to be like writing off games beforehand. Had this with the Leicester game, and it drove me crazy. I saw people saying after the game, well, I didn't expect anything today. And there's like a similar thing with Southampton, people commenting about the amount of money they've spent on players who aren't playing and the fact that they're in the Premier League last season. I can't get my head around it. Southampton have won two games all season. They've been really poor. Leicester, I'm not speaking to Ollie McBurney today. They beat Leicester in the week, right? They put three past Southampton the other week. They beat them. He was saying their score on aggregate against those two teams is 5-2. Hull have like rolled up their sleeves and had a right go against them, as most clubs have. Look at Charlton winning at Ipswich the other night. And yet, Bristol City beat Southampton and exposed how bad Southampton were defensively. We never even got a chance to see how bad Southampton were defensively. So, I just can't accept this kind of this attitude that, well, why did anyone expect anything today? I mean, it's like you'd think we were sort of FA Cup giant killers. That really frustrates me. So Yeah, I mean, it was just such a disappointing day. And, I came out of the ground with a little man and he said to me, it wouldn't be so bad, Dad, if it was 1-1 or 2-2, if we saw a score. And I was thinking, it's a really like obvious thing to say and simple thing to say. But aside from the social, that's why we go to watch our team, right, Steve? The best moment in a ground is when your team scores. It's so special, that moment. And you can't, for people who don't love football, you can't explain it to them, how you lose yourself in that moment. We didn't even come close to experiencing anything like that. And sadly, that is a theme this season with our team, where from an attacking point of view, we are so poor. We are miles off it. And we're just not enjoyable to watch. So, yeah, at the final whistle, um, I just wanted to get out of the ground, really, Steve. I wasn't going to stand there and applaud that because sometimes you can set up defensively really, really well and frustrate a team through really good play, through good organisation. And you can think, bloody hell, that was a hard-earned point that. We did really well to get that. Whereas I just looked at that on Saturday and thought, if you keep playing like that, there's no way you're getting results. So, yeah, a really disappointing day, mate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you say, you can applaud sometimes a good defensive display, but for me, that's a case of restricting chances inside your own box, and then usually the opposition get frustrated and end up trying to shoot from outside. And always in that situation, especially with the fact you've got a good goalkeeper, you back yourselves then, don't you, to be able to keep them out. But it's not a good defensive display if they're carving you open at will and just miss chances. I think that's the frustrating thing. It feels like we just got a result through just complete luck, really. And as you've alluded to, I mean, I saw something earlier about Southampton have won 4 of their last 47 league games, yet we showed no interest whatsoever in trying to have a go at them. And like as you said earlier, the best Swansea teams previously would always look to try and get on the ball and try and make things happen. And there was just no interest in that. And that's been the theme this season, isn't it? I mean, I saw a great video last night after the QPR game from Ali Maxwell from the Not Top 20 podcast. And he was saying that how harsh Swansea fans have sounded recently. Then he did some digging into some of the attacking stats. I mean, we're in the bottom three, aren't we, for like chances created, shots, touches in the box, all this type of thing. And it's not a shock if you watch us, really, is it? Because we just don't really seem to have any interest in going forward, and we're waiting for something to happen rather than trying to make things happen. And it's really frustrating to watch, and it's incredibly ineffective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think like Ali Maxwell probably how he started that video. I did see it myself. He sort of was surprised, wasn't he, that Swansea fans were sort of disappointed and frustrated with our direction under Sheehan. Probably because he just looked at the league table. And before last night, our games would have been what, 1-3, drawn four, lost three.
Yeah,
So it
that's
wouldn't
right.
have looked that bad on the face of it. But then you could see the shock, on his face when he started revealing these stats. And it's not the stats that make us who've been watching the team, Steve, think it's bad. The eye test has done that. The stats just support that. So yeah, it has been really, really difficult viewing, and my kind of memory of that game on Saturday, or what sticks in my mind rather, is an odd occasion then we'd have the ball. You just saw Vigouroux, and he's been unbelievable, by the way. I mean, his goalkeeping, thank God for that. But and he's clearly doing just following instructions here, just kicking a long ball, to on top of Nathan Wood's head or one of the Southampton defenders to head back. It was just so difficult to watch. We had offered literally nothing as an attacking force, and yeah, I know we'll come on to the QPR game in a bit, but that in many ways just followed on from the Southampton match. Obviously the sending off then is a different matter, but that first half an hour last night was just as painful. So yeah, I think. Look, for me, Steve, everyone will have their own idea on how they'd like to see their team play. Some people will say they don't care, and that's fair enough. Some people will say all they care about is results. They're not bothered by performances. And each to their own, there's no right or wrong way on that. But if you say that and you're not bothered by performances, so say we then do a smash and grab at Blackburn, we don't play well there, but we get a result. And of course, yeah, we want the team to win. That's fine though. If you're then moaning at people saying, why are people moaning about the performance? What you can't do then is moan about the performance when we lose or moan when we lose. I think you lose your right to do that because it just makes no sense to me. If you're continually playing poorly, then I don't see that as sustainable in terms of getting results. Ultimately, it will unravel. And if we're honest, how many times have we played well this season? How many times have we played well for just 60, 70 minutes in a game this season? Chef U, we were good, weren't we, at home, I remember. I'm struggling much beyond that,
Yeah,
Steve. Help
Sheffield
me out.
Wednesday is the only other one that
Sheffield
springs to mind.
Wednesday.
But
But
let's be realistic about it. They're in a bit of a state, aren't they? Like you'd expect to go there and punish them, really.
which pretty much everyone's done, right? You know, that their fan base, I feel so sorry for them, what their football club's going through at the minute. It's absolutely horrendous. So yes, I mean Sheffield Wednesday was another one, but it's hard to get excited about that. So the performances have been poor, and yeah, no surprise, the results aren't great either. So something has to fundamentally change. I was saying to people last night on social media because I did feel really frustrated after the game last night. Obviously, felt really frustrated Saturday, but I just don't know what we're trying to do. If someone said to me, like, it doesn't matter. If you want to be direct, be good at being direct. If you want to play low block, counter attack, fine. Be really good at counter attacking. If you want to play possession football, be good at possession football. You know, I don't, I just wish we had a style, but I don't even know what that is. And the strangest thing is, right, I think when Sheehan goes and manages somewhere else, and who knows when that will be, will it be next month, next year, 2028, God knows. But when he does, Steve, I'll be amazed if his possession stats look anything like they do now. I find that odd. I don't think that is in line with how he wants to play. And I even think the fan base is now quite fragmented on this. I think lots of people would have a different idea in their head of the Swansea way. Some people would even be dismissive of it. What I'm trying to say is I don't think the football Sheehan's playing now is what he would typically do. And I also don't even know what that football is at the minute because it's not possession football with a purpose. Um, it's just such a. Remember, Michael Duff used that phrase. He was asked about his philosophy and he said, I play mixed football. And I thought, what on earth is mixed football? And I'd say we look like that now. I can't. If someone honestly said to me, Stu, tell me what Swansea's style is now under Alan Sheehan, I wouldn't know. Wouldn't know what to say. I said we have a fair bit of possession, but beyond that, I don't know. I don't know what we're trying to do. How would you answer that, Steve?
It's the same thing, really, isn't it? I mean, I think what I thought Sheehan would be probably a more negative than positive coach. Obviously, he's come out and made comments saying thinks he's like to be an attacking coach. Well, he's he needs to do slightly better to say the least on that. But I mean, I think at the start of the season we weren't too bad defensively, so you could at least say we had that side of the game right. So you could
Yeah.
maybe then say we were a side that were trying to keep things tight and nick a few games 1-0. But I mean, we've given up the most shots in the 92, I think, in the last 6 weeks, over 100. So you can't
Yeah.
even say that we're good at that either. Really, it's
It's
what can you
it's
say?
baffling. No, it's just baffling watching this. And I don't even like lots of people have been picking up on this point with Stamenic, quite rightly, when we're trying to build up from the back. And Stamenic seems to position himself in a way that he can't get the ball. And you think, is that a conscious decision? Are you trying to avoid getting on the ball? Or are you told to be in that position to try and occupy their press? And so you're staying close to our centre backs, I'm guessing here, because the two number eight stay really high and they're disconnected from the six. In a way to try and, I don't know, open up channels either side for the centre backs to feed the ball into the eight. Not that that happens much. All of that I find weird. So today I thought, because there was a good article done a little while back on this, analysing our tactics in which I referenced this morning to a guy. I'd read it a little while back and hadn't commented on at the time, and he talked about this build-up stuff. And I said, do you know what? I said, I read your article, and I said, I wish I'd gone back and watched Galbraith playing as a six against Sheffield. So I did that this afternoon, um, and I was just looking at it on Y Scout, and Galbraith was getting the ball a lot from the centre backs, not loads, but a fair bit. And that made me think maybe it's not a system thing with Stamenic. Maybe it's Stamenic choosing not to get on the ball. Either way, Steve, our build up is just such a mess. We find it so difficult to play out with any purpose or conviction on the odd time we do it. Of course, on the other occasion, it tends to be a long ball hit towards Ronaldo on the right, or occasionally up to Vipotnik. It generally just ends up coming back, and that's where I say I don't see any patterns to what we're trying to do. Sometimes you could come away and think, here's an example I mentioned to someone earlier. Swansea Ipswich under Graham Potter at home. Can you remember that game?
Yeah, you're
We
going to
lost.
mention the goal here from by Selena.
Well, no, no, not so much that goal. No, not that, because obviously that was it was an incredible goal, but it's not a goal you're going to replicate on a regular basis. I just remember that game, Steve, and I remember thinking, if I remember right, it was one of DJ's earliest. It might have been his first start for us. Um, but I remember coming away from the game that day feeling really, really disappointed that we'd lost the game because I felt it was a real sense of injustice. But I also remember coming away thinking, I can see what you're trying to do. And actually, there's a lot of positives in what we're trying to do. And I'm not even talking about that Selena goal, just the way we played that day. I think they might have scored from a set piece. I think it might
Well,
have been
I
challenged.
think from what I remember, they only had 3 shots on target, and the goalkeeper
Right.
was definitely to blame for 2 of them. But we did absolutely batter them, and it
Exactly,
was
Steve. And that,
baffling how we didn't lose. And as you can say, you could see what we were trying to do. We had these good, exciting young players, and it was a
yeah,
case of right, well, today it went wrong. If we keep doing that regularly, we're going to win a lot of games, and we're going to excite.
right. And that's my point. It's not about the Selena goal. It's about that day coming away thinking, okay, I can see you're trying to do so. And look, it wasn't always perfect under Graham Potter. I remember the Wigan game, right? When wasn't he getting shot? Potter sort it out. I think he got because we were playing really poorly around Christmas time. And so, I'm not trying to kind of sugarcoat everything here, but you could see he was trying to do something with that team. And I just don't know what Alan Sheehan's trying to do with us at the minute. So that is really, really baffling. But yeah, I feel we just completely lack direction at the minute, Steve.
No, we do. I think it's hard to go against that. Really, I found it interesting what you said about with performances leading to results and this type of thing, and people being happy with. I think the issue I've got with like people just wanting results, as you say, is that let's say now that sitter for Southampton did go in the other day. A lot of people would have probably said, "Oh, they were happy with the draw," but their entire opinion would have changed if that goal had got in, and that's
Yeah.
where I find it hard to say it's just about results because you are then like one moment can change everything. Where a performance, you judge a performance over the whole on 90 minutes, don't you? If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So
totally.
you,
And performance, Steve, doesn't mean like wonderful football all the way through. If you want to play direct, be really good at being direct. If you want to be counter attack, be really good at counter attack. Like I said earlier, this isn't like a
yeah,
me getting caught up in the swan, but deliver a performance true to what you're trying to do, whatever you're setting out your plan to be, execute that as well as you possibly can. What the hell was our plan at Southampton?
yeah, it was. I think it was just the hope that our goalkeeper could bail us out.
I don't think he
You
made
know.
subs at half time, did he? Correct me if I'm wrong, did he?
No, he didn't. And
I,
to be
I,
honest, the subs he did make. Let's look at this. Inusa was definitely our biggest threat. Off he goes with 20 to go, and you're thinking, what are you doing?
and my reading of that, and this isn't informed opinion, this is my reading of it on this, would be that he'll feel that Anusa maybe doesn't work back as much as someone like Ronaldo. And so Ronaldo, for me, plays a disproportionate number of minutes for the quality he brings. And of course, I'm all in on working hard, but you've got to bring something. You're a winger. You've got to bring something positive with the ball to the table too. Anusa, he hasn't said it like, but when he's got the ball, Steve, it does make me think something could happen, something positive. And I think there's absolutely ability, potential in there. Um, I don't see that with several of our other wingers. I find them hugely frustrating to watch. Um, and yeah, so not only is it not working at Southampton, but it's like go back out and let's have more of the same second half. I just found that astonishing.
No, it definitely was, wasn't it? And as we've alluded to, we got through from luck really rather than anything else. But yeah, what else can you really say? I mean, we were all hoping for better, weren't we, against QPR? I think it's fair to say we didn't get better. I look at their goal and it was a simple ball. They did this a few times. I don't know if you noticed this last night. A ball from like a winger outside, and then someone's made an inside run towards the box on the byline, and then there's a cut back, and that led to the goal. But they did it to us a few times. We got caught with similar moves like that. And I know, as we've alluded to the red card, the manager probably you can say that that has not helped us, but we've created absolutely nothing before that red card. And that's what frustrates me the most, really. It's just that, again, we've done nothing. And realistically, we were very lucky to only lose by one. Again, it was down to really bad finishing. Now, I'm not sure how people feel about XG, but we've conceded 5.5 XG in the last two games, somehow only conceded one goal. Now, that says a lot, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous figures. Quite often it can not reflect it the other way, but that could have seen us concede 10 goals. You'd have thought, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So we'll still say that that if if the XG was what it was on the Saturday, which was more than three, then that's like normally sort of five goals are scored in those circumstances. I know people will start having a meltdown at us mentioning XG, but uh, yeah, the performance was a continuation of Saturday, and not just Saturday, but other games we've seen where we looked clueless in possession, didn't look remotely threatening, and QPR had come really close to scoring, if you remember, just prior to them taking the lead. And you're right, the goal itself is is a complete embarrassment. I was watching it at the time, unraveling and thinking, how is Hayden? I didn't know it was, obviously didn't know the name of the player at the time, but the Q, I think he was number 15 when it. How has he been allowed to run in behind so easily, and to cross that ball? And you watch it back, and there's there's basically ends up as a 3v3, or it should do. Stamanic is um, providing double cover for Galbraith up against the player on the ball, and then Franco goes over to that area too, where there's another QPR player, and Hayden just runs off the back of them, Steve, in like schoolboy style. It's really, really, embarrassing. And Sheehan talks about being an out of possession coach. If that's what an out of possession coach looks like, Jesus, it was just embarrassingly simple. And obviously, this is the players too, isn't it? Sheehan, they've got to be accountable as well. Stamanic and Franco for how they pick up players. Yeah, it was just a really, really woeful goal. And this is the terrible mess we're in. We'd probably all agree our best outfield player is Galbraith. And we're now in a situation where Key comes out of the team, quite rightly, but we end up playing our best footballer as in the best person on the ball at right back. So we lose out in midfield through that. Um, and and it just again looks, a complete mess. Sheehan said it was a more attacking lineup, didn't he? Uh, in what
Yeah, he
respect?
did.
In what respect? What? Because Galbraith played right back instead of Key. Because I can't see any other way that was a more attacking lineup. Um, I mean, the midfield's been a real problem, really, and yet the irony is, at the start of the season, we'd have all thought, "Cool, we got a great selection of midfielders here." We've never been like blessed with midfielders in terms of what we would have thought of quality and depth like that for a long, long time. But actually, Steve, it's been a huge issue. The balance doesn't feel right. I would like to see us now go to a double pivot and play with a 10 and play something like Galbraith alongside Stamanic, but give Galbraith um, the license to get forward as well, to be sort of a 6-8 kind of hybrid, but be involved in build up because I don't think Stamanic can do it. And then have a 10 like with Dale playing. And at least then we might carry a bit more creativity, conviction in our attacking play as opposed to what we've got at the moment. I say Stamanic. Stamanic has been a real disappointment. I can't believe he's not better than what he showed. I don't look and think there's a temptation here to write players off really early and judge them too soon. And I really don't like doing that. I can't believe he's not better than what he's shown. Um,
It feels like
but
he's
yeah,
got worse, doesn't it? He did
yes,
well when he came on in his debut against Watford, I think it was.
yeah, he
But
did.
he's
He
been
made some
poor
good.
since, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. I think did he someone I think someone said he played well at Sheffield Wednesday, but again, I think everyone had time on the ball at Sheffield Wednesday, didn't they, that day? But yeah, he has been a disappointment, Steve. And there was aspects of last night where he was sort of throwing his arms around a couple of times. Remember, second half he tried to drive forward with a ball, which I haven't seen him do much, and the ball was just taken away from him so easily. And yeah, his reaction to things that didn't come off last night just didn't look good at times. Sort of arms in the air. There was one with Sheehan, I remember, second half, um, where I think he tried to play a crossfield ball that didn't quite work out, and it looked like the two of them were kind of having words about what he should or shouldn't have done with that ball. But yeah, I just feel he must be better than what he's demonstrated so far. But fundamentally, I don't see how you can keep playing that same midfield mix, 1-6-2-8s. It's just not working. I thought, there's been calls for Cullen to play. I'm not being wise after the event. I didn't think Cullen should have played against Leicester. I
Well, he
think,
certainly shouldn't have
yeah,
played in that deeper role, should he? I mean, that just
no.
doesn't suit him, does it? I mean, it's silly for everybody.
It is, but I think people get again. He had a good. He scored, didn't he, at Blackburn that night?
Yeah. But
And
he can always take a chance. I mean, you could argue he's
yeah,
probably our best
but that
finisher, isn't he?
yeah, but then that doesn't mean he has to start next game,
No,
Steve. Is that because he
I
comes off?
absolutely, I agree with you that you can't just play someone for that. We know he can't play up front on his own. Certainly can't play as a deep midfielder. So,
No.
the best thing for him is if we need a goal is to bring him off the bench, isn't it?
Yeah, I genuinely don't know what Cullen's best position is. We've had this chat before here, haven't we? And I've said he's a squad player in my eyes. And that isn't
Yeah,
said
he is.
disrespectfully. He's got a role to play. He came on against Forest, and he played a part in the second goal, wasn't it? I think. And obviously the Blackburn situation we're just talking about there, he can do that, but I don't see him as a starter for us. In our best team. I'm not sure he's at 10. I don't know what position he is, but look, none of this kind of hangs on Liam Cullen in any way, shape, or form. Woodell came on last night. It was only 10 minutes or so, but at least he looked bright. At least he looked prepared to try and make something happen. He won a free kick on the edge of the box, a little dribble. He had a couple of shots. Wish he'd taken the free kick, by the way, which he was stood over, because I was thinking that's far more suited for a right foot to that side. But yeah, the time has come now for that midfield makeup, that system to change. Will he do that on Saturday? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and just before we wrap up the first part of the podcast, I mean, you touched on
Mm.
Waddell there, and I do think it's been odd the last couple of weeks that he's not been on the bench. He's back on there now, which I see as a positive, and I do certainly think that in games where we're expecting to be maybe more on the front foot, which could be the weekend now against a struggling Norwich, that maybe Waddell should come in and we should play them with the likes of Stamenic and or obviously Galbraith alongside him, some sort of selection like that. But I mean, the other one I wanted to talk about really is Benson because he's not been on the bench the last couple of games. I mean, I'm looking at him and thinking if he gets up to speed, he's got to be better than Ronaldo playing on the right hand side. But he's not involved, is he? I mean, I find that frustrating because I feel like we've pulled off a bit of a coup there, and now all of a sudden he's disappeared. It makes you wonder what's going on, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think there's probably more than meets the eye to that. That's what I'd say on that one. I mean, there was a lot of excitement when he signed, wasn't there? Because obviously it wasn't a deal that went through immediately, and there was a feeling at the time that it collapsed. And I remember we were away at the time, and my lad was so disappointed that Benson looked like wasn't going to come. And then when that news came through that we had managed to do the deal, I felt like a brilliant addition. Like he was like, when I used the cliche, it wasn't final piece in the jigsaw. I'm not going that far, but on the back of what had been a really good window, Steve, to get Benson over the line, it was like, wow, it has been fantastic. How exciting. We're going to have a player, we've been crying out for a left footer on the flank. We can play inverted, coming inside, carrying a threat to shoot, to cross from that side. And reality is, we've seen very, very little of him. I thought in the Forest game he played well. I thought he showed enough in that Forest game when he was dribbling with the ball to make me think, yeah, because he's obviously had his injury problems. He's missed a lot of football in recent times. But I saw some real promise in him then, and then jog my memory, Steve. He did play a game where he
Blackburn
didn't.
away, was it?
Was it? Yeah, it
That's
might
where he
have been.
started, wasn't it?
Yeah, was there a home league game where he didn't play that well and he came on? We might have, was it Leicester? I don't know. There was a game
Yeah, I
where he was.
think it might have been. It's certainly one, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's been amazing or anything, but I remember he was quite underwhelming in when he came on Watford. I don't know. I can't recall now. And I remember thinking, well, that was a bit disappointed. I expected more. But again, I'm not dismissing him. He's clearly a player who's thrived at this level, who can score goals, who can make things happen, who can go past players like Anusa can. Um, and yeah, he's just nowhere to be seen now. And that is a curious situation because, as I said, I think there's more than meets the eye to that.
yeah, you do wonder, and certainly he is a player that might be able to help us out with, our creative issues. Because you've got to think that a player that got well into double figures a couple of years ago at this level could be capable of, really improving us. But
Well,
yeah,
especially that right side, Steve. Yeah, because that right
yeah,
side has been hard work watching that.
yeah, it's not
Obviously we've
great.
said Key has had his struggles. That's clear to see. And then Ronaldo scored a few goals. I'm not dismissive of that, but his
You can't
general
trust
play,
him, can you?
his general play, and especially lately, has been so poor. I mean, there was a moment last night when Galbraith plays a lovely ball through, and he's running through in the inside right channel. Now, I'm not saying he should score, but at the very least, it should end up with him having a shot that leads to the keeper even making a save or something. And and he had to either shoot early or delay. And actually, the QPR player came across and slid really early. It was just so ready for like that chop back inside. And Ronaldo did what Ronaldo did and just kicked the ball against him. And that kind of thing is so frustrating. I feel, Steve, our team lacks balance in so many ways and in the most basic way in the sense that if there's any threat going to come, it's coming down our left flank and predominantly with Timon. It was no surprise last night that the best moment of the game comes from him putting in an incredible ball. And Vipotnik should have scored. He was in the right place. Unfortunately, he didn't get his toe to it. But we are hugely dependent on Josh Timon. If we had someone with half his quality on the right, it would make such a difference. Because it's just teams must look at us when they do their homework on us and think, let's target Swansea's right side. And by the way, very little's going to come from them from an attacking point of view down there, but defensively we can get at them, and we just end up in this same situation on our right where Key and Ronaldo seem to just get trapped. They end up going down this cul-de-sac, and it'll end up with then Ronaldo turning back, playing to Key going back to Cabango, or the ball just being turned up over through Key or Ronaldo trying to knock across him from a bad position and it getting blocked. So yeah, it's disappointing, all of that. Very difficult to watch and clear that we need, upgrades there. I'd be amazed if they don't sign a right back in the January window. Frustration is we've got the lad on loan from Chelsea who thought did all right against Forest, but he's a left back, isn't he? And he's not going to get in ahead of time. And I think if he was a right back, Steve, he'd be playing now.
Yeah, you do think that, don't you? But yeah, it's certainly an area we need to look at. But that's it for part one. We will go on to discuss the next couple of games in part two, and then a little bit as well about the manager's position, which could be under threat the way things are going. So yeah, we will be back shortly. So looking ahead, Stu, we're at home to Norwich this weekend. They're really struggling. Obviously, they've had a bad time. They're in the bottom three. Liam Manning hasn't been there long. I mean, he's got to be in a little bit of trouble, isn't he? I mean, in theory, this should be a good game for Swansea to get themselves back on track. But I can't say my optimism is particularly high after what we've just seen. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that, Steve. I think on the face of it, it is the perfect game, really. I mean, when I saw Norwich had another bad result in the week, I think myself, like probably a lot of Swansea fans, thought, "Oh, this will lead to Manning going." And not saying someone would have come in straight away then, but um, we saw what happened last season when Williams left and Sheehan came in. I think it was our first game Blackburn, and
Yeah.
you immediately get that call it new manager bounce because it's not a new manager, but you get that kind of uplift. But obviously that's not happened. Manning's still there. There's clearly a lot of really unhappy Norwich fans, players, There's been all sorts of stuff going on with them, hasn't there, on social media and sort of rows, and they feel like they're in a terrible mess. Um, so we're at home, the onus is on us now. And yeah, we have to go and we have to get a result Saturday. I guess Sheehan will probably feel all it matters is we win, but I think we're beyond it, beyond that stage now. It was Swansea fans. Of course, we want to see us win, but we actually want to see a bit of a performance too. We want to see something that gives us some hope going forward. That it's not just going to be a Blackburn type win. It's going to be a win, and there's a display to back that up that gives you some encouragement about what it might look like over the next few weeks. But yeah, I'd well imagine, Sheehan, probably like most managers in this situation, to be fair, Steve, all he'd be thinking is, I've got to win the game. It'd be very interesting what his lineup looks like on the weekend, um, because I think he'll want to get Galbraith back in midfield. I imagine he probably won't want to play key, but he probably will play key. Um,
I mean, would you
and
play Sam Parker based on that? Because I think he potentially does deserve a chance. And I mean,
yeah,
like you say, Key's so low on confidence, isn't he? You just think he does need to be taken out of the team for his own sake.
yeah. I guess he might just feel that um, and I haven't seen enough of Sam Parker, in fairness. But I guess he might just feel Sheehan that it's too much of a kind of pressure game now, that the atmosphere could turn a little bit if it doesn't go well. What would that look like with a kid? I think it would be more helpful if he had someone in front of him who you could trust and rely upon. But we don't have that on the right hand side of the pitch. So I'd be really surprised if he played Parker. I think he's more likely to play Key again. As I say, I can't see him playing Galbraith there again. And yeah, the rest of the team will be interesting. Vipotnik, I know he didn't take that late chance, but he had another one, didn't he, where he came close, I think just before at the near post. He looked lively when he came on. Uh, so it'd be interesting what Sheehan's approach looks like. And you've always got to be careful how much you read into social media. There's a lot of, frustrated, angry people on there last night. It's difficult to know how representative that is of the fan base. You'll know far better than me, Steve. You got your finger on the pulse there in terms of how people in Swansea feel about that. But yeah, I don't, how the stadium would react to us playing badly, going behind, I don't know on Saturday. Hopefully, obviously, that doesn't happen, but we've got to start well. I mean, that's a big disappointment with QPR on the back of a really bad performance at Southampton. You're at home. It's a game under the lights, and you think, come on then, let's go out and be on the front foot. And we were so passive. It was the total opposite of that. So surely Saturday, there's got to be some kind of reaction to what's gone on the last two games. And yeah, Norwich are kind of benign opponents. You couldn't wish for much better than this, really. So yeah, let's hope that it's a result, but also a much better performance too.
Yeah, like you say, it does feel like a good game for us, doesn't it? With the team so out of form. I mean, the distance obviously will come into it as well. They won't be looking forward to what must be their longest away day of the season. But like I said, I think the issue I've got really is that even if we were to win and it was a scrappy win, I'd just be thinking all it really does is paper over cracks and buy the manager some time. What I want to see is, like you said, some hope that actually we're improving and that we're going to continue to improve rather than
Yeah.
just the odd result that's gonna, just kick the can further down the road. We've got to look better. When we talked earlier about us being towards the bottom for chances created, touches in the box, etc. We've got to be trying to put a dent into these types of things because without it, how are we ever going to do any damage to the opposition other than the odd moment here and there? I mean, from my point of view, we're a bit lucky we've scored as many as we have because in a few games we've taken a couple of chances that we have made and there's not been many of them. Whereas obviously the last couple there's been nothing really, is there? So it's frustrating and let's be honest about it. If we don't get our house in order for the game after, things might get quite messy, mightn't they, when we play Man City?
Yeah, I mean that doesn't even bear thinking about, does it really? And look, that is obviously a free hit. I'm not being stupid with that game. What I don't like is this idea of when we're playing teams in our league that we should accept or expect to get nothing. That I just can't stomach that. But yeah, the City game is completely different, isn't it? And it's a shame because that Forest evening was really like brilliant. I absolutely love that. Um, should Forest have been out of sight? Yes, of course. I'm not losing sight, and I'm not ignoring that, Steve. They missed some ridiculous chances in that second half, but the finish we had, as freakish as it was bloody fantastic. That was a really like magical moment, and I can still see that Galbraith shot now, and when he sort of still trying to come to terms with the fact that that hit the angle of crossbar and post, and Burgess is pinged it into the back of the net. So all of that was bloody fantastic, um, but everything around that, and even that night, that's not it's not going to keep happening. That kind of thing where you score two goals like that in injury time, and you get away with the other team being so toothless at the other end or so poor with their finishing. Uh, so yeah, I mean, to go back to the Norwich game first, you're right. There needs to be a performance too, and there needs to be that because otherwise it's just a Blackburn scenario again. There needs to be something that makes you think, yeah, we're heading in a more positive direction. We're producing something today that if we produce that again, we're likely to get a result. Whereas at the minute, it's yeah, we're kind of getting what we deserve in many ways, albeit we have more than that at Southampton, obviously. So there needs to be some cohesion in how the team plays. There needs to be a clear plan. There needs to be a far more attacking approach, which there wasn't the other night, despite what Sheehan said. There really wasn't. Um, I guess the other thing we should touch on the other night, Steve, because we haven't, it was obviously the Arcueil sending off, which
It
was
was
mad.
just silly, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That's how I
it
look
was
at it. I
madness.
mean,
I
I
couldn't
didn't
go
think
right,
it.
so we didn't go to the game um, because Zach's got school the next day, and it's some of the midweeks are difficult for us now. So I gave my tickets away, but I was watching it, and you told me your career got sent off without saying he got sent off before it happened on the TV because I saw the instant with him appealing for the pen, which wasn't a pen, and then at the corner of the screen, you could see something was happening, but then they followed the ball, the camera, and I was worried. I thought, what's he gone? What's happening here off the ball? And then it just came through on my phone. I think you typed something like Yaku's asking for that, and I thought, oh no, he's gone and got a red card, and so yeah, that obviously was a huge blow, but it doesn't change. Like it wasn't like we were playing well at that time. We were playing bloody awful. It just obviously made the task all the more difficult. Perhaps the fact that he's not available now, I guess, in a way you kind of think that naturally that increases Waddell's chances of starting, but he can easily still find a way not playing him if he goes with Franco Galbraith and Stamenic. But yeah, we need to see on Saturday some real positivity in our play, some stuff that's getting us off our seats a little bit. It makes us enjoyable to watch. As I said earlier, we go to football for reasons beyond what happens on the pitch. But there's been times over the last couple of years where I've almost felt that's the only reason I go to football. I chat next to James next to me sometimes about anything and everything, and the game become a sort of sideshow because it was so poor at times. And then, the disappointment this season is actually after the window, with our owners showing real ambition, you're thinking we could be going somewhere here. We could be back on track here. And to find us in this position now, where when I say position, yeah, it's not great in the league 16th, but the most worrying thing is is how we're playing. It's just not enjoyable to watch. It's not entertaining in any way. The goal tally is pitiful. All those stats, that people nothing to do with Swansea have been putting out about us in terms of our attacking intent or the total lack of it. They're embarrassing those stats. But they don't bother me, and they're not the main thing that bothers me. What bothers me is what you and I are watching, Steve. What was stood behind the goal at Southampton watching on Saturday, which is a team that looks, as I said earlier, completely shapeless. All of that. has to change. So yeah, if we did a 1-0 smash and grab on Saturday, there'll be some people then who won't care one bit. They'll look at it and think, oh well, 1-4, drawn 4, lost 4. That's not bad at all. We're only 4 points off the playoffs. What we worried about. What we're worried about is it ain't sustainable. Performance is really important. As I said before, it doesn't mean playing a certain way, but it means having a plan and executing that well. And at the minute, I don't see a plan, and we're certainly not executing anything well.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about plans there, and I think to myself, a plan should never include just aimlessly lumping the ball up the pitch, which I see so many times now from our centre halves, and I'm just thinking this just it isn't the way to do things, and it doesn't seem to work either. For example, so that probably says a lot for where we are. Really, it is deeply frustrating, really, isn't it? And I mean, where do you stand on the manager at the moment? I mean, from my point of view, I just don't see how it's going to change, and I just think he is. I felt at the time he was the wrong fit. I do understand why he was given the job based on the results. But at the same time, I think we should have gone for a different type of manager, one that is more forward thinking, wants us to dominate possession, but not just do it for the sake of it, do it with purpose and to have the ball to create chances and to hurt the opposition really. And that's definitely not Sheehan. But I mean, well, do you think
Yeah, I
we should
think
make a change? And also, I suppose the thing is, do you think we will at this stage? I mean, I don't think we will just yet, but I do think with that next international break looming in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I can see a potential change coming at that stage if this carries on.
yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said there, Steve. Obviously, we speak a lot. We go to games together at times. Your views on Sheehan aligned with mine. I've seen some people like be careful what you give credence to, really, I guess. But saying on social media about people who've said, I saw this coming with Sheehan and saying, well, you couldn't have done kind of thing, and you were ignoring everything in front of you. Well, no, we weren't, because some people want to read so much into very little. It's such a small sample size. And again, you look at games last season. Yes, there were some really good results, and yes, there were some good performances. There were also some really bad ones. Derby at home was atrocious, if you remember that. We had one
Well, we
shot on
just
target,
stole a late winner, but the game was really, really bad.
dreadful. I think Sunderland could have gone in. There was like toss a coin games. That's how I call them, Steve.
Yeah.
Where you call heads and it ends up tails. It wasn't like you looked at the game and thought, yeah, again, that was a really, really good performance that merited. And so actually, what we're seeing this season is some of those games aren't going our way, kind of thing, in the way that they were last season. And again, that's not to say there weren't some good performances last season. There were, but I never got swept along with the caretaker thing. I remember someone asked me about it on Twitter, and I said, type something to the effect of, I'm not buying into that narrative. And yeah, it's here we are now. I do, on that note, you mentioned something there, and I think it's a really good point. Some people will see this as a cop out and say, no, the club have got to be better than that. They've got to be more. Going with their own judgment and not swayed by fan opinion. But I do think it would have been very difficult for the club to have not given it to Sheehan in some respects, because had they not given it to him when clearly, I say clearly, again, it's social media, but it felt like a lot of people wanted him to get that job at the end of the season. By no means everyone, but a lot of people did. Had they not given it to him and had they brought in someone else, and that someone else had started the season like Sheehan started this season, then you can imagine where that would have gone, Steve, right? There'd have been
Oh,
everyone
100%. That
saying,
was a big problem for me. What they should have, around the time of that Derby game where we looked more or less safe, that's when they should have made the decision to bring somebody else in before the clamour. I mean, I remember when we beat Plymouth really convincingly. We did play well, to be fair, but I do find it very difficult to justify how bad the opposition were that night. But you could
yeah,
sort of see it coming then at that stage, everyone be getting swept along. And I remember this happened under Francesco Guidolin, and people were clamouring for him, and I was thinking, this isn't the way to go. Brendan Rodgers is there. And he
Steve, I was just
100%
trying to.
was the right thing to do, wasn't it? And obviously, you could argue we've never recovered from it.
That's a good. It's a good analogy. It's a good comparison to make, and I was absolutely bamboozled by that. I mean, at that time, I'm reporting on the club, more than I'm not following it. Like, Zach would have been, I don't know how old then. What were we talking with the
So
Gwydolyn time?
it'd be 10 years ago in May, that will.
So he would have, yeah. I mean, Zach, dear me, started. I think the first win he saw was under Bob Bradley, and there weren't many of those, which was Palace, that mental game. So I wasn't really. I enjoyed covering the Swans, and I guess I felt an affinity with them then, but it wasn't anything like what it is now. But I remember looking at that decision. I didn't being wise after the event because you're speaking to people at the club then as a reporter. That was my role, and I knew there were people there that were thinking this ain't right. And that was the summer, obviously, when I don't know why we're taking us down this path that will torment us, Steve. But that was a summer when Rodgers could have come back, right? It was the biggest sliding doors moment, and I was convinced, like a lot of people were, that Gwydolyn would not last long the following season. So yeah, that was a real mess. But yeah, the whole caretaker thing. I think just players respond differently to someone coming in short term towards the end of the season too, when it's just got a completely different feel. There's free hit games, and none of this is to say that Sheehan didn't do well. He clearly did do well. He had a really good record, but I didn't see, like you didn't, like other people, who the guy does Vital Swans, didn't see that translating into a long-term appointment for Swansea. Now, we could have been proved totally wrong. Perhaps we still will be. Perhaps he'll turn this round and go and win a load of games and we'll be in the playoffs in 4 weeks' time. Who knows? But, how we felt about it, how you've described, yeah, that was it. We didn't think he was the right person for that role. So do I see anything happening imminently? No, I don't. I think the earliest it would happen is probably what you're saying around the international break time. Um, Things can change like crazy quickly in the championship. When I mentioned I spoke to Ollie earlier, I wasn't just ringing him up for chat. I was doing an interview with him for a feature that I'm writing. And he was saying all of a sudden, they've won a few games and they're right in the mix now. And that's the madness of the championship. Say the madness, even more so this season, Steve, right? There's not we were discussing the fact that, look at the three relegated Premier League teams. Um, it feels so open. Some of the teams in the playoffs this season, okay, it's early on, but you wouldn't have imagined they'd be in the top six like they are.
This is a
It's
real chance, isn't it, for quite a lot of teams? And you
Yeah.
look at the Premier League now and you're thinking a few of the teams that went up this year could well stay up, Sunderland especially, given the start they've had. But if the likes of West Ham come down, it's going to be really hard next year, isn't it? This is an opportunity being spawned, isn't it, by us at the moment?
I do see it as an opportunity, and I know some people will say, it's a really good championship. I've seen some people say, I mean, I don't subscribe to that view. I actually think, having watched the championship now, what we came down 2018, right? So we're what, 7 seasons in, something like that now, and I think broadly speaking, Steve, it's regressed the standard of it. That's not to say I don't enjoy going along. I love going along, and I love the chaos of the championship. But in terms of the quality of teams in it, I think over time that's got poorer. I look back at some of those teams in our early years in it, where Bielsa's Leeds that couldn't win promotion. That Derby County team that Lampard had, Villa at that time with people like, McGinn and Grealish and Mings, people who've gone on to be really, top players. It's not like that now. And yeah, it does feel like there's an opportunity. And that's not saying we should finish in the top six, but I do feel we should be competitive in this league and, competing for a place around about there. That's not saying we should be in it, Steve, but I think we should at least be able to do, something not dissimilar to what Bristol City or Charlton are doing now. I
Well,
don't
you
feel
can't
like
spend the
that's
money that we've spent and not expect an improvement on last year either, can you?
no, you can't. No, not in terms of results, not in terms of performance, but both. So at the minute, it feels like we're a way off that. So yeah, I don't. What have we got coming up beyond that? It's Charlton away, is that right? After
Yeah, Charlton
Norwich?
away, Preston away, then Ipswich at home is the last game before the international break.
Yeah. So there you go. There'd be another nonsense narrative around Ipswich. Oh, look at the money they spent. They're in the Premier League last season. I mean, Charlton didn't give a monkeys about that last night. So yeah, it's on us, isn't it, to put together some performances and results now and turn around. Not on us, it's on Sheehan fundamentally in the players. And it's still early enough in the season, Steve, right? We're what we've 5 points off the playoffs and we're 5 points off the relegation zone. So none of this is like terminal damage done to the season. But I get what you sort of alluded to. If it carries on in this way and nothing does change, then yeah, it will be too late. Obviously, um, there's got to be a marked improvement. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think there absolutely has, isn't there? And I think if we get past that international break and Sheehan's still in charge, if things haven't improved, then I think our chances of a successful season are probably over at that point because you're just losing games all the time, aren't you? And then it becomes an uphill battle to make up ground, really. So
Well, it's
I
another
just think
season written off, isn't it, Steve? If that
it is.
happens,
It feels like we've had too many of them, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I look back and I just think we've struggled to really find the right manager for a long time. Graham Potter got mentioned earlier, and what I would give to for him to have stayed really all those years ago. I know he's gone into another job now, so he wouldn't obviously be available to take the job now. But you'd be looking for that type of person really to come in and free flowing football and getting the best out of what he's got. And I just feel like we haven't had that really. That's what's so frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is to kind of reignite the club a bit. And I still feel time will tell, I could be wrong. I feel the players are better than what we're producing at the minute. I think they're capable of much more than that. So, some people will listen to that and think, well, the players should be producing better performances, and I wouldn't argue with that. But I also think it's down to the manager as well to get more out of them and to set the team up in a way that encourages that to happen. So yeah, I'm not saying it's a one-way street and it's all on She and the players have got to improve too, but I do feel the whole of how we approach games is key to that as well. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, Graham's circumstances at the time, Graham Potter were uh, obviously he'd had great success, hadn't he, in Sweden, and weirdly, as you think about it now, it there wasn't any great sort of desire to bring him in from clubs really in the UK at that time. It did feel like a very sort of Swansea appointment. It was very different what we did, and Graham's had a strange career, hasn't he? Since he obviously, I remember when he left us, they were Brighton fan. Why are we taking the manager who finished 10th in the Championship last season? And I think a lot of us probably thought, well, you'll find out because he's a bloody good manager, a bloody good coach, and obviously had great success at, well, did really, really well at Brighton. Great success. People might say that's OTT, but he completely changed the style of football there. That they've been playing to stay up under Chris Hughton, um, and the club were on a really good path with him. And then obviously it hasn't worked out since in terms of the Chelsea move, which I think a lot of people thought was destined to go wrong. And I don't know why he took that West Ham position. I always thought that was a really bad call. And I'd say the same. I'm not being wise after the event there, 'cause I'd say the same about Nuno going in there now. Um, but yeah, who knows what that would look like, Steve. But it would just be nice to have a season, wouldn't it, where we feel like got something to play for. When was the last time that happened? Was bloody COVID, wasn't it? We were all watching on
Yeah,
laptop.
that's the thing. It doesn't feel the same then, does it?
No, 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 no. So yeah, it's the last few seasons. I guess a couple of times was there one under Russ where we thought we might, in an unlikely fashion, sneak in at the end playoffs
We were
near
a
the
couple
end.
of games short, weren't we?
Yeah, we were never really going to do it, were we? But yeah, at the minute, obviously, there's so much can change, and I'm not saying this will happen, but when Steve Cooper went into Forest, right, they were bottom of the league, weren't they?
Yeah.
So you get the right person and a bit of momentum, and anything can happen. I certainly don't think. I'm not saying we should finish in the top six, but I don't think aspiring to finish in the top six should be considered outlandish for us, given the players we've got and given the championship this season.
Yeah, that has to be the aim from my point of view. I mean, if that isn't, then surely we haven't spent all that money to say, right, well, an improvement on last year is acceptable. I know that maybe the ownership might say that publicly, but privately, I'm not buying it at all. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But big thanks to you, Stu, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I can't say hugely enjoyable in terms of reliving some of the last things, but it's always a pleasure to discuss Swansea City with you. And I think everyone that listens will really enjoy this. So hopefully we can get you on again at some point. Hopefully when things are a little bit better. So thanks to Stu, and thanks to you all for listening. Let's hope next week or whenever we record next will be a bit more positive. I can't say I'm overly optimistic about that, but time will tell. You do never know with Swansea City. We tend to be unpredictable at times. So thanks for joining us, and we'll be back again soon. So bye for now.